This is your help video for quiz 1.10. Okay, so we're not going to go over actual quiz questions here. Instead, we're going to go over each of the mapping rules. And you need to have these rules either memorized or on flashcards or on foldable notes. You need some way to go back and learn these mapping rules. Okay, the first one is a translation, and that just says you take any point x comma y and you add or subtract a number to x or to y or to both. We're going to look more at translations in just a minute, but if it's adding or subtracting a number to x, or if it's adding or subtracting a number to y, that's going to be a translation. All right, next we have a reflection across the x-axis. If you're flipping across the x-axis, let me just draw a picture real quick. Let's say you're going to take this star and you're going to reflect it across the x-axis. It's going to end up down here, and I hope you notice that the x value stays the same. The only thing that changes is the y value goes from positive down here to negative. So when you reflect across the x-axis, the x value stays the same and the y value changes. Same concept, when you're reflecting across the y-axis, the y value is going to stay the same and the x is going to change signs. So for example, if you had your star over here and you were reflecting across the y, it would end up over here. And I hope you notice that the y value is the same. The only thing that's changed is x went from positive to negative. All right. If you're reflecting across the line y equals x, line y equals x is actually this line right here, where the slope is 1 and the y-intercept is 0. When you're reflecting across that line, you want to change the order of x and y and switch both of the signs. And what that would kind of look like, if you had a star that started up here, it would end up down here. You would change the order of your x and y and you would change the sign. Okay, 180-degree rotation about the origin. Y'all, this is the same as if you reflected across the x-axis and the y-axis. Because if you think about taking this star and reflecting it across the y and the x, I hope you realize it would end up down here, which is the same thing as 180-degree rotation. So, all you're going to do is change the sign of x and change the sign of y. For a 90-degree rotation counterclockwise, I don't know why, this one's harder for me to remember, but 90-degree counterclockwise means that you're going to start over here and you're going to rotate it one quadrant counterclockwise. And in order to do that, you have to change the order of x and y, and you have to make y negative. All right, a 90-degree rotation clockwise about the origin, you would want to move one quadrant in the clockwise direction. And in order to do that, you switch x and y, and you change the sign of x. Okay, so these are your mapping rules. Sorry if my pictures don't really help, but you do need to have these memorized, or like I said, on notes or flashcards or something. You're going to want to know them. And the more you work with them, the more you'll remember them. Like, yeah, we'll get there. Okay, so translations. We need to be able to list out what's happening in each of the translations. So here, if I'm taking 3 and I'm adding it to the x value, think about your x-axis. Your x-axis goes right and left. So if I start at any x value, let's just say here, and I add 3 to it, I'm actually moving 3 to the right. So this would be moving 3 to the right. If I was subtracting 3 from the x value, it would be moving 3 to the left. That's what we're going to see down here. We are subtracting 5 from whatever x value we start at, which means we're moving 5 to the left. On the next translation, we're adding 1 to the y value. And you have to remember the y-axis goes up and down. So if you add 1, you're moving up 1 space. So this would be up 1. And then here we're subtracting 4 from our y value, so that would be moving down 4 spaces. All right. And then the last two things that we're going to go over as if we're actually given a point, and we need to come up with a new ordered pair. So if we have point A located at 3, -4, and it's translated using a rule of x minus 2, y plus 8, what are the new coordinates of A prime? Alright, so all you have to do is simply apply this rule. You need to take the x value and subtract 2. So I'm going to take this x value, which is 3, and I'm going to subtract 2 from it. Alright, and then we'd want to do the same thing for y. It says y plus 8, so I would take my y value of -4, and I would add 8. So my new ordered pair would be located at 1, 4. Now some of you are super visual and you would rather do this with a graph. That's fine too. We can throw this on a graph real quick. So if you're here at 3, -4, and you want to subtract 2 from the x value, that's the same thing, remember we just said, as moving 2 to the left. So I could move this 2 to the left, and then adding 8 is the same thing as going up 8 for the y value. So I would go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you would end up here at 1, 4. I know that graph's really messy, but if you prefer to use a graph, then go ahead by all means. Alright, let's check out this next one. It says if point B is located at -2, 7 and is reflected across the x-axis, what are the new coordinates of B prime? Okay, so again, you could just take a graph if you're graphical, if you like that. And you could put a point at -2, +7. And you could reflect it across the x-axis. So it would be over here at +2, 7. But if you don't want to sketch a graph every time, then you just need to remember your mapping rule. If you're reflecting across, oh, I just reflected it across the y-axis. Wah, wah, wah. Ignore everything I just did. If you want to reflect it across the x-axis, sorry people, it's going to end up down here. Whew. Come on, Miss Stewart. Okay, so it would end up down here at -2, -7. But if you didn't want to draw the graph, you could just use your mapping rule. When you reflect across the x-axis, the x value stays the same. So -2 is going to stay the exact same, and the y value changes sign. So +7 would turn into -7. So for each of these, you can either think of it using a graph, or you can think of it using your mapping rules. Okay, I hope this helps.